Our economy's been through a lot, and I want you to remind your friends and neighbors about these facts. First, 6 months prior to our arrival in Washington, the stock market was in serious decline. And then we had a recession, then we had corporate scandals, and then the attacks of September the 11th cost us about 1 million jobs in the 3 months after that fateful day. But we acted. By cutting the taxes, we spurred consumption and investment, and our economic policies have led us back to growth. Our economy is growing faster than in any nation in the industrialized world. We've added 1.9 million new jobs since August of 2003. The national unemployment rate is 5.4%, which is lower than the average rate of the 1970s, the 1980s, and the 1990s. The unemployment rate in Pennsylvania is 5.3%. Home ownership rate is an all-time high. Farm income is up. The small business sector of our economy is flourishing. The entrepreneurial spirit is strong, and we're not going to go back to the days of tax and spend. My opponent has very different plans for your budget. He's going to take a big chunk out of it. He voted against all the tax relief that I suggested Congress pass. If he'd had his way, the average family in America would be paying $2,000 more in taxes to the federal government. All told, during his 20 years in the United States Senate, he has voted to raise taxes 98 times. That's 5 times a year. I would call that a predictable pattern. When a senator does something that often, he must really enjoy it. During this campaign, he's proposed $2.2 trillion of new spending. Now that is a trillion with a T. That's a lot even for a senator from Massachusetts. So they said, how are you going to pay for it? He said, oh, we're just going to tax the rich. Now you've heard that before. Be wary when you hear, oh, we're just going to tax the rich. My opponents promised $2.2 trillion, but when you run up the top 2 brackets, you only raise between $600 and $800 billion. There is a gap between that which he promised and that which he can deliver. And guess who usually fills that gap? We're not going to let him tax you. We're going to carry Pennsylvania on November the 2nd and win a great victory. Choice in this election involves the quality of life of our families. A good education and quality health care are important to a successful life. As a candidate, I pledge to challenge the soft bigotry of low expectations by reforming our public schools. And as president, I kept my word. We passed education reforms to bring high standards to our classrooms and to make schools accountable to our parents. We're seeing progress all across America. Math and reading scores are on the rise. Achievement gaps, particularly for minority students, are closing all across our country. We're building on these reforms. We'll extend them to our high schools so that no child is left behind in America. We'll continue to improve our lives. We're making health care more accessible and affordable. We will expand health savings accounts so small businesses can cover their workers and more families are able to get health care accounts they manage and call their own. We will create association health plans so small businesses can join together and buy insurance at the same discount that big companies are able to do. We will help families in need by expanding community health care. We will make sure every eligible child is enrolled in our government's low-income health insurance programs. And to help the families of Pennsylvania, We will do something about the frivolous lawsuits that are running up the cost of medicine and running good doctors out of practice. Like other states, you've got an issue when it comes to these medical liability lawsuits. I've met too many good OBGYNs who've been run out of practice because their premiums have gone up too high. I have met expectant mothers here in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania who are worried about whether they and their baby will get the health care they need. You cannot be pro-doctor and pro-patient and pro-personal injury trial lawyer at the same time. You have to make your choice. My opponent made his choice, and he put a personal injury trial lawyer on the ticket. I have made my choice. I'm standing with the doctors of Pennsylvania, with the patients of Pennsylvania. I'm for medical liability reform now. My opponent's got a different view when it comes to health care. I remember our debate when he looked right in the camera and he said his health care plan and the government has nothing to do with it. I could barely contain myself. The government's got a lot to do with it. 8 out of 10 people will be signed up to a government program. Think about the idea of making it easier for people to sign up for Medicaid. It means small businesses will no longer provide coverage for their employees because the government will. And people would be moved from private insurance to government insurance. You see, when the government writes the checks, the government starts making the rules. And when it comes to health care, when the government makes the rules, the government starts making your decisions. And they start making the decisions for you, and they start making the decisions for the doctors. Now, his plan is a big government-run health care plan. It is the wrong prescription for American families. And all we do to reform health care, we'll make sure the decisions are made by doctors and patients, not by officials in Washington, D.C.